On February 28, 2026, during the opening hours of Operation Epic Fury, a US Tomahawk missile struck the Shajara Tayyibah Girls' School in Minab, Iran. The roof collapsed. Over 160 people were killed, the vast majority of them young schoolgirls. It is a horrific, absolute tragedy. But if you look at YouTube right now, you aren't seeing an analysis of why the military architecture failed. You are seeing a highly profitable performance. You are seeing influencers point their fingers at the political avatar and scream, Trump's choice of war. Welcome back to Sentiencekid. Today, we need to talk about the brutal reality of the algorithm, the fatal ignorance of the permanent state, the Silicon Valley sellouts, and the cold-hearted capitalism of digital empathy. Let's strip away the simplistic narratives. The media wants you to believe the president intentionally pressed a button to kill children. It gives you a face to hate, but it is completely false. A politician didn't choose to kill those kids. An AI targeting miscalculation did. We need to stop looking at artificial intelligence through the lens of Hollywood science fiction. AI is not a hyper-intelligent Skynet playing 4D chess. Right now, it's a fast, fragile, and deeply flawed statistical parrot. Let's look at the hard cybersecurity data. The media tells you AI is an invisible super weapon, but we need to state this explicitly. AI has actually made it incredibly easy for hackers to exploit our systems. The people actively auditing the code know it is a terrifyingly fragile house of cards. Just weeks ago, the researchers at Checkpoint exposed critical vulnerabilities in Anthropic's Claude code, specifically tracking it under CVE 2025-59536. They proved that hackers don't even need you to actively run malicious code to take over your systems anymore. By simply abusing built-in AI configuration files, attackers achieved remote code execution. Opening a clone repository was enough to hand a hacker complete control over an enterprise's shared cloud workspace and exfiltrate API keys before the user even clicked a trust prompt. And this fragility is systemic. The 2026 IBM X-Force Threat Intelligence Index just reported a massive 44% surge in cyber attacks targeting public-facing applications because AI has made it so easy to discover and exploit vulnerabilities. Low-skill operators are now using generative AI to automate attacks on supply chains faster than human engineers can patch them. But here is the ultimate punchline of this technological arms race. As we see a massive rise in AI, we are simultaneously seeing an explosive rise in anti-AI systems. For every $1 billion the permanent state spends on an AI drone swarm, adversaries are spending pennies to defeat it. We are seeing the rapid deployment of adversarial machine learning software designed specifically to poison the training data of an enemy AI in real time. We are seeing localized GPS spoofers, targeted EMPs, and algorithmic jamming tech designed to make a neural network hallucinate on the battlefield. It is a mathematical rule. Breaking a complex, fragile digital architecture is always exponentially cheaper than building it. A rational person looks at an exploitable architecture like that, where hackers use AI to easily breach servers and anti-AI countermeasures can blind a $1 billion weapon platform in seconds, and thinks the military would never use this to drop bombs. But that assumes the military understand the technology. Here is the terrifying structural nuance. The permanent state does not know the full implications of what it is plugging into its mainframe. But the tech architects do. Look at Anthropic and its CEO, Dario Amodei. When the Pentagon came knocking for a contract, Anthropic drew a hard line. They explicitly refused to allow their models to be used for mass domestic surveillance or fully autonomous lethal weapons. Dario Amodei built the system. He knows its fatal flaws. He knows that plugging an easily exploitable LLM into the US military's kill chain will create a larger structural threat to the United States than any foreign adversary. He looked at the math, understood the full issue with the system, and didn't want to go that way. But the ghost in the machine doesn't care about structural safety. It only cares about velocity. So what did the permanent state do? In late February, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth officially designated Anthropic a supply chain risk. They weaponized a legal authority normally reserved for foreign adversaries against an American company simply because the CEO refused to hand over an unrestrained, hallucinating killing machine. And what happened next? They simply moved down the list to the capitalists who were willing to ignore the math for a massive payday. Let's look at the absolute mask of moment for Silicon Valley. Look at OpenAI. Look at Elon Musk. Within hours of Anthropic getting blacklisted, OpenAI swooped in to sign their own defense contracts. They're watching a system drop bombs on children, and their only reaction is to ask where they can sign the paperwork. Do not mistake this for ignorance. Sam Altman and Elon Musk know exactly what they are selling. They know the architecture is flawed. They know swarm drone logic is incredibly vulnerable to basic anti-AI electronic warfare. They have read the checkpoint research. They know the full catastrophic cost of the problem. They are selling a digital suicide pill to an ignorant military bureaucracy, fully aware of the fatal side effects because the Pentagon's check cleared. And this marketing grift has a body count. During Operation Epic Fury, this US military used AI targeting systems to process over 1,000 targets in 24 hours. The AI pulled coordinates from outdated Defense Intelligence Agency databases. It saw that the Shajara Tayaba school was adjacent to an IRGC naval complex. The AI did not see a playground. It saw an old coordinate, hallucinated a configured target package, and authorized a strike. We have handed the power of life and death to a hackable algorithm, managed by an ignorant state and sold by CEOs who are actively lying about its capabilities just to drain your tax dollars. But you won't hear that structural truth from the trending geopolitical influencers. You won't hear it from commentators like Lady Lena Petrova. Why? Because explaining anti-AI adversarial learning and the OpenAI military pivot doesn't get clicks. These channels are run by algorithmic capitalists disguised as empaths. They cry on camera because the current trend dictates that crying about a bombed school yields high engagement. But watch how their psychology breaks down when you look at domestic issues. When working class Americans go bankrupt from medical debt, or when people starve under the weight of the domestic economy, watch how these commentators react. The darkest part isn't even that it's a performance. It's that they actually believe their own brutal worldview. They will literally shed tears for the struggling American on camera to boost the algorithm. But when it comes to why that American is struggling, they will look you dead in the eye and state it is an objective fact that it's just a lack of talent. They genuinely believe that if the system grinds you into dust, it is simply because you didn't work hard enough. It is a completely warped psychological dissonance. They will performatively cry for Americans at home, and they will cry for victims of the empire abroad. But they will always, inevitably, defend the capitalist structure that causes the suffering. To them, your poverty is a skill issue. but your tragedy is their content. People love simplistic narratives because the truth requires actual psychological labor. It is easy to point a finger at a cartoon villain avatar. It is easy to scream at a politician who didn't write the code, didn't train the neural network, and didn't actually pull the trigger. But we have to stop vilifying the people who didn't actually execute the structural violence just because the algorithm tells us it's trending. If we want this to stop, we have to drag these so-called visionaries into the light. And let's stop revering them. Just because they are on the cover of Forbes, Forbes is not a government entity, it is a private magazine. They print whatever misleading, self-reported PR data these tech CEOs hand them. The public hasn't audited their vaults. The public hasn't verified their wealth. So we need to stop celebrating them like they're untouchable gods. Why do they want these Pentagon contracts so desperately? Yes, the greed is absolute, but it is also about survival. In the ruthless machine of Silicon Valley, if they don't secure the infinite government funding, their hyperinflated AI bubbles will pop. So they survive by hiding the fatal flaws of their networks. They survive by watching the machine use their defective code to slaughter civilians, as long as it keeps their companies afloat. Stop letting the avatar take the heat for the architects. Stop funding the influencers who are selling you tickets to the tragedy while blaming you for your own struggle. Look at the structure, look at the ghost in the machine. If you want to dive deeper into how to escape from the ghost in the system, let me know in the comment section. Hit subscribe and I will see you in the next one.